Hey, Thrawn, where have you been? Well, that's a great question, but the reason I've been gone for like the past week is because I've been busy doing commissions for LEGO. So thank you so much to these people that are being put on the screen for commissioning me, and now on to the video. Hello and welcome to Thrawn's Terminal. I am your host, TR66, or Thrawn for short. So, now getting where I've been out of the way, onto the two new episodes, because I missed one on accident last week, so that's on me. So, we had episode 11 and episode 12 for The Mandalorian. I liked both of them a lot. I thought episode 11 was the best one. It overtook the first episode for the second season for me, definitely. I felt a lot more happened. And was more influential on the main story. To go into a non-spoiler descriptor of episode 11, basically, the Mandalorian finally ends up coming to the location where the Gecko Woman was supposed to be dropped off. He drops her off, and she manages to meet her husband, which is all nice and very heartwarming and beautiful to see them together. And then he ends up finding the Mandalorians that he was trying to find and that her husband knew, and he ends up having to help them before getting more information that he was looking for being able to help the child. To get into a more spoiler territory for that, the person he ends up finding, the Mandalorians, was Bo-Katan. You'll remember Bo-Katan from Rebels and the Clone Wars as the rightful heir of Mandalore. Bo-Katan is currently looking for the Darksaber, which is why she ends up recruiting the Mandalorians' help to try to find Moff Gideon. We also find out that there is actually a difference between Mandalorians. For Bo-Katan, she talks about how the Mandalorian is unwilling to take his helmet off, and then we find out that is the difference between Mandalorian culture, the Night Owls versus the Death Watch, which we will also remember from Rebels and Clone Wars, which the Death Watch, apparently, to Bo-Katan and others, is a more religiously zealous version of the Mandalorian code. That is super cool to have. I think more lore about different cultures and different religions is always a positive for Star Wars, so being able to see the differences between a more zealous version of the Mandalorian way versus a non-zealous version of the Mandalorian way, I think just adds to the Mandalorian culture and the lore. It was also awesome to see, Bo-Katan come back after seeing her in the Clone Wars and all that, so that was super cool. Also, in this planet that this episode 11 takes place on, this is the first time we get like a more colonized world for the Mandalorian. There was more like a spaceport. At the spaceport, we also saw Mon Calamari and Quarren together, which was really awesome to see. We've seen them before in Clone Wars, but now we see them, in a more flesh and blood again. Good to see things like Admiral Akbar back in the day. And so seeing Mon Calamari and Quarren together is nostalgic, I think. And it was cool to see, like, Quarren and Mon Calamari, how they interact with each other, what the kind of food they eat. We saw Baby Yoda getting poured some sort of soup with some sort of tentacled monster in it, which is super cool. We also got to see boats. I haven't seen like a proper Star Wars boat before, and I think this was super awesome to see how they use these kind of boats for fishing and for probably their lifestyle. On top of that, for this new episode, we also got to see new models. So one of the new models was that AT-AT at the very beginning, or what I think is an AT-AT. It looks like a modified AT-AT with a crane and a large observation deck on the front of it, completely redesigned specifically for hauling, movement, transportation, and resources. Yeah, I think it's very similar to the AT-AT model that we saw in Han Solo, where it was in Corellia, we saw those large behemoths in the Star Destroyer plants. And I think that's super cool to see. Hopefully we can get more models of that kind of construction equipment, day-to-day life kind of designs. Another new model that we got was the Gazanti class. We've seen the Gazanti class before in Rebels, but not a very high-definition design. And this ship has also been seen in Star Wars Squadrons, but also not as highly designed as this one. I think this is by far the best design we've had of the Gazanti, and I really like how this was designed in the show. I think it adds a lot more depth to it. We got to see the insides and the corridors of how those are designed as well. Very similar to that Imperial design of like unusually lit corridors and a bunch of doors everywhere, and some of the cargo holds and that kind of stuff. So that was super cool. For episode 12, to go more into the non-spoiler for this one, it was the Mandalorian coming back with his obviously thoroughly beaten up ship, meeting up with Cara Dune and the Carl Weathers character. I don't remember his name, but he ends up in that spaceport again, and they've, secured the location a little bit better. They have a better lockdown on like who comes in, who comes out, and that kind of stuff. The Cara Dune is now the marshal of the place. They're like sheriff. He shows up, is like, hey, I need to fix my ship. They start working on his ship. They ask him, hey, since we're fixing your ship here, could we ask for your assistance? So they end up going to what they assume is a abandoned or skeleton crewed Imperial facility. End up blowing it up, dipping, grabbing some stuff. In this episode, to get into the more spoiler stuff, so what happened is the facility that they thought was a skeleton crew was not as skeleton-y as they were hoping it would be. There was a fair Imperial presence there, had a lot of firefighting. We got to see some TIE fighters. We got to see the Imperial recon transport as well. A non-troop transport variant, I think more of a gunned variant. It had two, side sponsons on it and the back gun, so that was super cool. But we find that there is a lab there, and that lab has been using the child's blood to take midichlorians out of the blood and transfuse it into other alien species. We're unsure of what exactly is in the vats. My assumption, it is some sort of cloned project, and the scientist that ends up on the hologram ends up talking about how, we're looking for a higher midichlorian count. The person who ended up getting the transfusion didn't make it, so we know they're doing something with the child's blood. They want somehow to put midichlorians into other people. So that already is really interesting, some sort of project there. But then at the end, we see an Arquitans, which is super cool. We've seen Arquitans before. This is, again, high defined model. We've seen them in Squadrons, we've seen them in Rebels and the Clone Wars, but this is a much higher model in polygons and in style and design, so I appreciate that. And then at the very end, inside that Arquitans, which looks like it's Moff Gideon's capital ship, maybe it's just one of his smaller ships, we don't really know. We haven't seen what his fleet looks like, but so far we know he has a Gazanti, he has an Arquitans, and he has that Imperial research facility, so he has a good might. But at the end, we see him inside that Arquitans, and him standing in a corridor with a bunch of scientists around looking at these black troopers in like suits. We don't know what's in them, we don't know what they are, but it looks to me as if it is the Dark Trooper Project. If you aren't aware of what the Dark Trooper Project, it was in the extended universe in Legends, where they created artificial infantry as both either cybernetic enhanced clone troopers or completely robotic droids that were basically super soldiers, like crazy versions of stormtroopers. It seems that they are going in that direction and recanonizing the Dark Trooper Project, which is awesome to see. I'm really excited to see how this plays into the rest of the story. I think what's going to happen is that Moff Gideon is taking this midichlorian blood, transfusing it into cloned troopers, and then putting those troopers inside those suits, and then augmenting them and putting cybernetics into them to basically make Dark Trooper Phase 2s, Dark Trooper Phase 1s. In the original canon, Dark Trooper Phase 1s, 2s, and 3s are all droids. Dark Trooper Phase 0s were cybernetically enhanced clones. So I'm interested to see if they take a more cybernetic approach, or they take a more cloned approach, or maybe it's a fusion of both. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out in the rest of the show. So, yeah, ending thoughts. 2 incredible episodes, a lot of lore that we went through, a lot of interesting new designs, new concepts that they're bringing in. I really hope this continues with the show. We know that in the next episode, the Mandalorian is hopefully going to end up seeing Ahsoka Tano after talking to Bo-Katan. Super excited, interested to see where it keeps going. All in all, great show. Always watching, always hoping for more stuff. So that's the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe, all that kind of stuff. And I hope to see you in the next one. Peace out.